My guest is Tracy Lawrence, one of the new stars in country music. And Tracy, you had 2 #1 records already, haven't you?
Yes, sir.
How many releases have you had?
Just 2.
It's easy, isn't it?
No, it's not really easy. There's a lot of hard work involved in it, but it's very rewarding, very satisfying.
First #1 record was?
Sticks and Stones.
Which was #1 when?
January, about the middle part of January, I believe.
Okay, that was followed by?
Today's Lonely Fool, which was #1 about a month or so ago, about 6 weeks.
So your first #1 record almost happened on your birthday, didn't it?
Came real close to it.
Your birthday is when?
January 27th. As a matter of fact, we had my official #1 party and my birthday party, combination party at the same time.
Yeah, I make reference to that sometimes. Tell these people what a #1 party is.
A #1 party is where you invite your songwriters and the publishing companies and all the people that have been involved in your album or your current record, and you just have a celebration to say thank you to all the people that have been involved with it, and to honor you as well and your record label.
Now, what sort? Do you get an award at a #1 party?
Not really. Usually the press comes out, newspaper people from town, and Crook and Chase possibly, and some TNN crews, and it's just a little event that happens.
It's a great excuse to have a party, isn't it?
It's a great excuse to have a party.
What's going to be record #3?
Record #3 is Running Behind, and it is out now as we speak. It entered the charts at number 39 with a bullet.
And this is off of the Sticks and Stones album.
Yes, sir.
How deep will you go into this album?
Probably 1 more single, maybe 2, but I don't know yet.
There's a little tune in here, cut 6, called Paris, Tennessee.
Yes.
And that interests me because that's where I started my radio career. Why did you record a song called Paris, Tennessee?
I found that song from the A&R folks at Atlantic. I was looking for something to put on the album that was a little bit on the lighter side, a little bit more humorous, and it definitely fit the bill, and it was up-tempo. I needed the variety on the record, and it's a great live song to do.
You know who lives in Paris, Tennessee?
Hank Jr. does.
That's right.
Sure does.
And that says a lot for that town.
Definitely does.
It's in West Tennessee. I guess it's probably west of Nashville, about 120 miles.
It's not very far, hour and a half, maybe not even quite 120 miles.
Tracy, what's your middle name?
Lee.
Tracy Lee Lawrence?
That's it.
Where are you from?
I am originally from a small town called Atlanta, Texas, but my family moved when I was very young, and I grew up in Foreman, Arkansas.
Did you know there's another country singer from Atlanta, Texas?
What's his name?
Nat Stuckey.
I've been told that before.
Nat Stuckey, the late Nat Stuckey, was from Atlanta, Texas. This is like deja vu because I know the first time Nat ever told me that, I said, I thought Atlanta was in Georgia.
That's what everybody tells me. Most people don't even know where Atlanta, Texas is.
Where is it?
It is about an hour due south of Texarkana, Texas, right down Highway 59 going towards Houston.
Well, I'll look for it when I'm in the neighborhood.
All right.
What was happening to you, Tracy, just about a year ago?
Just about a year ago, exactly a year ago in 10 days, I had just finished my first album and was shot in a parking lot on Music Row, and I was in the hospital. I was just getting out of the hospital when Fanfare was going on. I was supposed to have been there. So it's been a very dramatic year in a lot of ways.
What were the circumstances surrounding the event, your getting shot?
I was mugged in a hotel parking lot on Music Row and assaulted by 3 armed men, and while protecting a young lady that was with me from being assaulted.
Had you been on a date with this lady?
No, she is a friend of mine from school. She was passing through town, and we'd actually been at Nashville Now that night.
Really?
And Alan Jackson was on the show, Tim McGraw was on the show, and I'd been out there to see them, and we'd hit several of the clubs around town.
Were you on the show?
No, sir.
Just visiting?
Just visiting.
So you what, taking her back to her motel?
Yes, sir. She was leaving early the next morning, and I was dropping her off at her hotel room.
And you, 3 men came up?
And robbed us, told me to leave the keys in her car. I was in her Corvette, and instructed us to go to her hotel room. In my mind, I knew that they were either going to kill us or sexually assault her and kill us anyway, or you never know. I knew if I got locked up in that room, I'd never make it back out alive.
All right, what did you do?
I attempted to take the gun away from one of them.
How many guns did they have?
Two of them. There were two of them that were armed. In the process, the other one missed me several times, and two of them fled while she got away. She ran to the front of the hotel, and
She called the police?
they did call the police, and they were there probably in about 10, 15 minutes. It all seemed to happen so fast.
So you attempted to take the gun away from one of these men?
Yes, threw him up against the wall and actually had the gun in my hand while he was still holding it, and my finger fell across the barrel of the gun and almost shot my finger off.
Well, now, you said there was another man with a gun there.
Yes.
Did he shoot you?
Shoot me at the same time.
Where did he shoot you?
Once, I believe his bullet struck me in the left hip. I don't think he hit me anywhere else. The first shot the guy was struggling with shot my hand, and then he grazed my upper arm, and the last shot that struck me went through my left knee, at which time I fell on the pavement.
Are you over all this?
Much better. I still have a lot of complications with my knee, especially traveling as heavy as we're doing. Going into different climates, when it's real humid, I can usually tell when it's going to rain now. I still have a lot of problems with it. But as far as walking, I don't have much trouble with that. Occasional swelling with the joint, but for the most part, I'm over it.
You have a lot of guts.
You know, a lot
Did you feel like you were desperate?
No, sir. Yeah, I'll be honest with you. There was a point in my life when I really don't believe I would have been able to do what I did. But I'd picked up and rerouted myself in Nashville, and for the first time I felt satisfied with my life. I was at peace with myself as a person, and I felt like I was closer to God than I had been in a long time. And at the time that I made that decision to do what I did, I really felt in my mind that I was going to die. And at that point, it seemed like it would have been okay, because I was, for the first time in a long time, I was at peace with myself. I was satisfied with my career and things that I was accomplishing. And if it took me giving my life to save someone that I cared about, it would have been okay to go.
When the police arrived and found that you had taken on these armed men, what did they say to you?
Really, at that point, I don't remember a lot about the conversation that went on. Just the general questions: was it a drug deal? You know, what were the circumstances involved? How many guns did they have? Did you see which way they went? What did they look like? And I never went out. I never went unconscious. But a lot of it is real hazy to me now.
Tracy, were these men finally caught?
No, sir. They've never been caught. Probably never will. Closest thing the police were able to find out, they were teenagers. They were young. And I really don't have any way of identifying them. It all happened so fast. The more months that passed between it, the less I can remember. There really wasn't enough evidence to pursue anyone.
Were they black or white?
They were black men.
Did you get you said they stole something from you?
They got several $100s worth of cash, credit cards.
Did they get away with that?
Yes, sir. They actually, when I got out of the car, the one guy that was not armed approached me and made me take my belt buckle and my belt off. My belt buckle evidently caught his attention, and he made me take my belt off.
Tracy, all this happened to you in the 23rd year of your life.
Yes, sir.
You do have a lot of guts, though.
Thank you.
I commend you. I gather that you felt like if you didn't do something,
we would both
you could have been killed. Anybody write a song about that?
I haven't yet. No one, as far as I know, no one has even attempted it, but I'm sure I will somewhere down the road.
Well, the reason I bring that up, there are so many songwriters down in that area, and so many of them were aware of the event. I'm a little surprised that somebody hasn't put that on paper.
I'm sure that it will happen somewhere in the near future. I've tried to wait till I was far enough away from it to even concentrate on writing a song so I could really put it into perspective and say what I want to say in it. It's really hard to put an experience like that into a 3-minute song. Now, if I had a full novel to do it in, I could probably write what I wanted to say. But to say it in 3 minutes, I want to make sure that it's delicately balanced. Everything that I experienced, I want it to be felt when you hear it.
The young lady in question, the one whose life you saved, is she all right now?
Yes, sir. A lot better. She had a much more difficult time dealing with it emotionally than I did. I think pretty much because of the fact that I was injured so severely. But she's much better now. I see her when I'm in the area. She comes to a lot of the shows when I'm around where she goes to school. So we do keep in contact.
Tracy, where did you come from? As many people would say, how in the world did you get a break at such a young age?
I'm originally from a small town called Atlanta, Texas.
How did you get to Nashville?
Well, when I came to Nashville, I'd been living in Louisiana at the time. I was playing on the road with a band, and my bass player came in on a Monday afternoon. We'd been together about 2 years, and told me that he was tired of working as much as we were working. He was ready to get out of it. And by that evening, I decided, I'd finally made up my mind I was going to Nashville. In a week's time, I sold everything I owned, packed up my little 1980 model Toyota Corolla that had about 250,000 miles on it, played my last weekend gig, went home and spent a week with my family, and came to Nashville. Never been here before in my life.
Did you know anybody here?
No, sir. There was one guy here in town that went to my high school that I hadn't seen in several years. I saw his aunt on the street before I left, and she gave me his phone number and told me to call him when I got to town. And I called him about 9 o'clock. It was September 2nd of 1990. I remember when I came down 265 in Nashville and saw the skyline of the city. It was a very incredible feeling to see all those lights and not know anybody or where you were going to go. But for the first time in my life, I felt like I was home. Felt like this was the place I belonged. I was finally here. I called him about 9 o'clock, wound up staying with him for about a week till I got on my feet, and been hard at it ever since.
Eventually, you must have met Rick Blackburn.
Yes, sir. I met Rick probably the early part of 1991. I met Elroy Kahanic from Atlantic Records first. I met him at a place called Live at Libby's in Daysville, Kentucky, which is broadcast over one of the local radio stations every Saturday night. It's a live Opry-type show.
What were you doing up in Kentucky?
I was singing on a show.
So was it just an opportunity to sing someplace?
Yes, sir.
You mean you had to go up into Kentucky to be discovered by a guy in Nashville?
I made $25 every Saturday night to drive an hour and a half one way and sing usually 3 or 4 songs a night.
Which town in Kentucky is it?
Daysville, Kentucky.
What's that close to?
Russellville.
Okay.
And the station broadcasts the show live every Saturday night over about 4 states. And it's very listened to by many of the people in Nashville.
So they saw you, or Elroy saw you on this show, and then recommended you to Rick Blackburn, head of Arista Records?
Atlantic Records.
Excuse me, Atlantic Records.
Well, I met my management the same night.
Sorry, Rick.
Sorry, Rick. He didn't mean that. I met my management, Jeff Carver, the same night that I met Elroy. And it progressed into a showcase, which is where I met the other part of my management team, Wayne Edwards, and it has just evolved. We finally wound up in Rick's office and listened to tapes and went through all the song selection and whatever. It just, one phase led to another.
Now, this first #1 record you had, Sticks and Stones, did you find that immediately?
Actually, I found that song months before I even had my deal. I was writing with a young man named Elbert West, which also, he co-wrote a song with me that is actually the song that got me signed, called Froze Over, which is on my album. Elbert had started Sticks and Stones months before out of a recent divorce he had and given me the opportunity to write on it, and I never took the time. And he finished it with a guy named Roger Dillon, and after I heard the demo, I fell in love with it and held on to it. We didn't let him pitch it, just kept it to myself, and it wound up being on the album.
Aren't you glad?
Definitely.
Tracy Lawrence, new country star. How does it sound to you?
It's tough to adjust to sometimes. Meeting so many people and to see the fans sometimes get wild is an incredible experience.
You mean the fact that you have that kind of impact on people?
It really is. I'm a country boy from a little town. I've dreamed about this all my life, but to actually be living what you dream of is an incredible experience.
Your life changed a lot?
Everything about my life has changed. From my daily routine to the way I eat, the way I live, financial-wise, the people around me, every aspect of my life has changed.
Have you added to your life a band and a bus and a fan club and all the trappings of stardom?
Have a brand new bus now, which is actually what was Garth Brooks' private coach that has been repainted that I'm in now. Have had a band since October. We've been traveling the road real heavy. Probably worked close to 300 days this year.
Wow.
And looking to add a new bus soon. Do have a fan club that is active.
Have you had the pleasant experience of working on stage with a lot of stars that you used to admire, or probably still do admire, but you used to admire from afar?
I have had, just had the opportunity to work with Lori Morgan, and Mark Chestnut and I have gotten to be good friends. Vince Gill, we worked with him recently. Worked with Shenandoah, Gene Watson, John Conley. A lot of things coming up in the near future I'm hoping that are going to work out.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
It really is.
Do you want to ask for an autograph?
No, sir, I don't. I have too much, I guess I see it from this side. I've never been one to do that, strange enough. It's never been something. I was always the kind, if I wanted to meet somebody, I wanted to sit down and talk to them. I didn't want to just say, hi, how are you doing, and get a piece of paper with their name on it. That's never had any value to me.
You're shy?
No, sir, never have been. Very outgoing, very forward.
Are you married?
Single. Don't even have a girlfriend.
You're kidding.
I don't. Don't have time. I'm working too much. I'm a workaholic.
Well, obviously the lady who rocks your socks just hasn't appeared yet.
Not yet.
That could very well happen. Did you leave a girlfriend back in Atlanta, Texas?
No, sir.
Or down in Louisiana?
Left a girlfriend back in Louisiana a couple of years ago. Still keep in contact with her.
Want to get married?
No, not anytime soon.
How big is your family?
I have 3 sisters and 2 brothers, and we're all very close.
Are they in the music business?
Not at all.
You the only kid in the family that wanted to be in the music business?
The only one. The only one so far. My brother has just gone to work for me recently.
What's he doing?
He is going to be handling my concession sales on the road.
What's his name?
His name is Laney.
When you were a little boy, did you pretend to be a star?
My mother has told me stories as young as 2 years old about me singing Charlie Pride and Glenn Campbell songs. She told me when I was 2, she had a stack of old albums, and she could tell me to go to that stack, and she could name any album and pick out any song, and at 2 years old I could pick it out by the album cover and count the number of lines and put it on any song she requested.
Oh, that's that's interesting.
I wrote my first song when I was 4 years old.
Wow.
I wasn't even old enough to write. My mom and dad wrote a verse apiece. I wrote it about a girl I had a crush on that was 16, 17 years old that lived down the street.
At the tender age of 4, he wrote his first song. You couldn't even write, could you?
Couldn't write.
Liked older women, didn't you?
Oh, yeah.
What was the name of the song?
You know, I don't even remember, but my mother still has the original copy of that song.
Did you sing it? Did you make a recording of it?
No, sir, I didn't. I do remember writing it. I remember sitting down at the kitchen table and my mom and dad writing it, but it's very vague. I hadn't seen it in a long time. But my mother does still have the original copy of it.
Tracy, you didn't come to stardom by the same route that people like Joe Diffie and Billy Dean and Pam Tillis and Trish Yearwood did. They came to Nashville and did demos for a long time.
I did a lot of demos. It just didn't take me very long. My career took off much faster than I ever anticipated. I came to Nashville strictly with the ambitions of becoming a successful writer first and meeting people in the industry. I never thought that it would happen as quickly as it has. I was just fortunate enough to have met people that believed in me, that have been really solidly behind me since the very beginning and pushed me and nurtured my career and took an interest in me learning business from a businessman's point of view. I've learned a lot in the last year.
Do you happen to recall who was out there on the street with you before you were discovered? I'm talking about people who eventually became stars.
I was working with Clinton Gregory at the time, live at Libby's in Daysville, which he has gone on to have some success. There's been several of them.
Who were you doing demos with?
I did demos for the Cornelius Company, a lot of independent songwriters, things that I've done that, so many people's names, it's hard to remember. They all run together after so long.
But that is a way to be discovered, isn't it?
It definitely is. I think it's more so of a way than actually coming to town and going to work at the nightclubs. I know a lot of people do that. That is probably one of the reasons that I think my career took off so fast. there are so many people that come to Nashville and work in town, and their names show up in the Sunday showcase, and it's seen that after a year or so they become overlooked. It's like, well, I've seen him before. He's down there. He's still at the stockyard or whatever. And I had an opportunity to get out of town where it was a little bit more special to come out and see somebody. And when you're doing demos, you're heard more. It may take them a while to catch on, but as long as you're being heard, you're coming across somebody's desk.
You're heard by the record producers.
Yes, sir.
And they may not go out and see as many live shows, but they do hear a lot of demos.
And it may take them a while to start recognizing you, but after a period of time, they're going to start putting that voice to something that's familiar with them.
Tracy, it's a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you, sir.
I admire your guts and your perseverance. I think you're going to be a big star.
I'm just having a good time. I guess I tell everybody the same thing. This is my lifelong dream, and if it never goes any further than it's gone right now, I've accomplished a great deal.